Hi everyone, I'm Julie Fleshman, President and CEO of PanCAN. I'm coming to you today from PanCAN's Scientific Summit in Boston, where I'm surrounded by some of the most brilliant scientific minds in the field. There is such a buzz here, an incredible energy, excitement, and intensity. Our Scientific Summit is one of my favorite events to attend, and I think you will soon understand why. We're thrilled to be here today at the Verastem Oncology offices in Boston. We're so grateful to Verastem for hosting us in their space. There is so much to be excited about in the pancreatic cancer research community right now. Foremost on my mind is that this year, thanks to you, PanCAN has invested a record-breaking $25 million in pancreatic cancer research. That's $25 million to advance breakthrough scientific studies and our clinical initiatives that get us closer to our vision of creating a world where every pancreatic cancer patient thrives. In total, you've invested $174 million in pancreatic cancer research since we began our PanCAN research program almost 20 years ago. Your donations, the funds you raise by inspiring your friends and family to give to PanCAN Purple Stride, the events you host, your monthly gifts, matching gifts, gifts through your wills, every dollar you give makes a huge difference in fueling progress. Thank you. Today you'll hear about the latest advances in precision medicine, immunotherapy, drug development, early detection, and screening for high-risk individuals. We'll share the latest updates on the PanCAN Precision Promise clinical trial platform and the PanCAN Early Detection Initiative, and how they are revolutionizing pancreatic cancer treatment and detection. There is a lot to get to. Before we move on, I want to thank our webinar sponsors, AstraZeneca and Ipsen, as well as our scientific and medical affairs industry members, AstraZeneca, Cornerstone Pharmaceuticals, Fibrogen, Immunovia Inc., Ipsen, LabCorp Oncology, Mirati Therapeutics, Novartis, Novacure, and ViewRay. I also want to be sure you know about the resources and support for patients, caregivers, and families through PanCAN's patient services. Case managers are available to answer your questions about the disease or anything you learn about today. Now let's meet our very special guests. Dr. Lynn Matrisian is the Chief Science Officer at PanCAN. Lynn leads some of our important research initiatives, including the PanCAN Early Detection Initiative and PanCAN's Research Grants Program. Dr. Andy Lowy is a surgical oncologist and Chief of the Division of Surgical Oncology at UC San Diego Health. He has received multiple PanCAN research grants and is a principal investigator in PanCAN's Precision Promise. Dr. Lowy is also a past chair and current member of PanCAN's Scientific and Medical Advisory Board. Dr. Anirban Mitra is professor of pathology and translational molecular pathology and the scientific director of the Sheikh Ahmed Pancreatic Cancer Research Center at MD Anderson Cancer Center. He has received multiple PanCAN research grants, including a Career Development Award many years ago, which helped start his career in pancreatic cancer research. Dr. Mitra is a member of PanCAN's Scientific and Medical Advisory Board and also sits on the advisory committee for PanCAN's Early Detection Initiative. Dr. Nicolette Rodriguez is an instructor of medicine at Harvard Medical School and co-director of fellowship initiatives for trainees unrepresented in medicine in the Department of Medicine at Brigham and Women's Hospital. PanCAN is providing funding for the Regenerate study, which stands for Racial Ethnic Equity in Genetic Education, Risk Assessment, and Testing. Dr. Rodriguez is the project lead for Regenerate. Dr. Jonathan Pachter is Chief Scientific Officer for Verastem Oncology. Verastem Oncology received the 2022 PanCAN Therapeutic Accelerator Award, supported by 1440 Foundation and the Gail V. Coleman Kenneth M. Bruntel Research Fund. This new PanCAN grant has one ultimate goal: to get better treatments to patients more quickly. Stay tuned and we'll explain more. So Dr. Matrisian, I want to start with you. Let's talk about PanCAN's research strategy. Can you talk about how we decide what are our funding priorities and how do we make those decisions?
Yeah, Julie, our research strategy really derives from, I think, our overall philosophy that we meet patients facing pancreatic cancer wherever they are in that journey. So our patient services, PanCAN's patient services, takes calls and emails from individuals and gives them the best information we have. So on the research side, we try to get them better and better answers all the time. Let's move the field so that we have better information to give them. So on the research side, for example, patients call us and ask about new treatment options. So we have research programs that then look for the next new treatment options. They call and they ask about supportive care. How can they manage their symptoms? And the research on that side really requires looking at big data and surveys and getting patient input on that. And so we have research initiatives that look at that. And then, of course, we have individuals who call and ask about their risk of pancreatic cancer. And so we have early detection initiatives and programs to really try to understand that risk better and to be able to detect pancreatic cancer earlier when it can be treated better. And then finally, in order to really have that kind of research going on in the field, we need investigators. We need people doing that research. So we put a lot of effort on the development of people's careers, getting them early, make sure they're well trained and that they're doing good research and they have the resources they need to do good research in the field.
Yeah, great. I mean, really, ultimately, we want to change patient outcomes. And so we want to build the field, and then we want to ensure that we're funding across the entire research spectrum to find an early detection test and to create better treatments for patients. So at PanCAN, we believe that, just as important as funding the research is bringing the community together. And we call that our community for progress. Thanks to events like PanCAN Scientific Summit, which we're all attending this week, PanCAN researchers are collaborating, sharing ideas and findings, and really helping to grow the field and always keeping the patient at the center. So tell us more about the Community for Progress and how our annual Scientific Summit plays an important role in that.
Yeah, well, Summit is such an exciting and a fun time and such a big part of this Community for Progress. So I think about it that researchers are often specialists. They know something very well and very deeply. So they have one piece of the puzzle. And what we need to do is put the different pieces of that puzzle together so we get a better idea of what the whole field looks like. So it's opportunities like Summit where we bring people together. They meet each other. They become lifelong friends often with each other. And that grows the field because we're transferring knowledge and information between them through this by putting these puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, and this panel is actually a great example of that. We've got a gastroenterologist, a surgeon, someone from PanCAN, a pathologist, and someone from pharma. I mean, really bringing all the different disciplines together, and that's how we accelerate progress. So, Dr. Matrizi, and I noted earlier that we invested a record-breaking $25 million in research last year, which is just so incredibly exciting. And our total investment now to date is $174 million. So talk a little bit about this investment.
Yeah, well, I love those numbers. I think it's really amazing. And it really goes to so much thanks to our supporters, our donors for allowing us to do that. And we take it very seriously, the responsibility of investing that in research that will really make a difference. So we really have two buckets that we fund, two ways that we fund research. And one is grants, and those grants go to universities and investigators in research institutes across the United States. And those are ideas that come to us through grant applications. And we have the advantage of being able to look across the country and take the very best ones that we can and fund them at that point. So that's a very important way of funding research. But the other way we do it is that we, as a patient advocacy organization, look and see what's needed in the field and where can we do something that one institution cannot do by themselves. And so we build some of these bigger initiatives where we can bring people together and accomplish something that nobody could really do it all by themselves. And those are things like PanCAN's Precision Promise, or an initiative in treatment, find better treatments, and PanCAN's Early Detection Initiative. So bigger projects like that, where we can draw people from many different places, draw them together, and have them all working towards a common goal.
Yep, great. And so of that $25 million research investment that we made, over $10 million went directly to research grants. So talk a little bit about the different kinds of research grants that PanCAN funds.
Yep. Well, our longest standing grants program is our Career Development Awards. And those fund junior young investigators just starting out, and we hope to hook them on pancreatic cancer. And you see some wonderful examples here of people that we hooked a while ago who are now leaders in the field, like Dr. Maitra and Dr. Rodriguez, who's just starting her career. So that's, I think, a great way to really invest and grow the field with really bright researchers with a lot of energy and great new ideas. And then we fund research in basic research, translational research, and clinical research with very specific grants. And we use them to fill gaps that we see in the field. And we've done, for instance, translational research like the one that Dr. Lowy got. So grants that find an exciting new opportunity and help move that along. And then most recently, we started our biggest investment in grants thus far, and the first time we've ever really targeted pharma or biotech, and that's our Therapeutic Accelerator Award, like the one that Veristem got, and we're so happy that that initiative really worked quite well, and really excited to have you join our Community for Progress and
we're
work
thrilled
with
as
us.
well. Yes.
Yep, great.
Great. So, Dr. Lowy, I think clinical research tends to get a lot of the hype, right? We're studying something in a patient, we're getting closer to potentially a new treatment, but basic science is really important for helping to move the field forward. Can you talk a little bit about why basic research is so important?
Sure. Well, basic research can obviously mean many things, but in the context of trying to cure pancreas cancer, it really starts with trying to understand, what allows the cancer to grow and to survive, and what we can do to actually interrupt that process. So, part of the focus of our laboratory is, the identification of what we call new therapeutic targets, meaning new ideas about how we can kill or arrest pancreas cancer by finding a way through ultimately drug development to interrupt a survival pathway that pancreas cancer cells need, or a pathway that allows the cancer to spread. And so, really it's basic research, but it's really basic research with a kind of eye towards translation and towards the clinic. There is certainly, it's very important to do research that just helps us understand basic biology, but in terms of as cancer biologists, most of us are really focused on those discoveries that can be applied to patients ultimately.
Absolutely. And translational research is another area really important that sometimes gets ignored, that if we don't take what we learned, from basic biology, we've got to figure out how now do we take that and put it in a patient, and that's really what translational research is all about. So you received a translational research grant from PanCAN. Tell us a little bit about that project and what you're doing.
Yes, it's really exciting to share. This was a project that was initially based on a discovery at a research institute in San Diego, where I'm from, the Sanford Burnham, where a small protein fragment called a peptide was discovered that could bind preferentially to the blood vessels within tumors. And its activity was to basically open up a hole in the tumor to allow drugs to more efficiently get in. And we know from the work of many people that the pancreas cancer environment is very hostile to drug delivery because it's very dense, very high pressure. And so we think that at least one explanation, certainly not the only, but one explanation why some therapies aren't as effective as we would like is we simply don't get the agents to the tumor. And so this peptide really showed the potential to enhance the delivery of chemotherapy drugs. And so we, myself, and Kazuki Sugahara, who is also a surgeon scientist now at Columbia, but when he was at Sanford Burnham, we got a grant from PanCAN to study this peptide called IRGD in mouse models of pancreas cancer, and we demonstrated that the peptide really enhanced the responses to chemotherapy in these mouse models. That peptide was subsequently taken into the clinic, and an early phase study in patients was done in Australia. And the disease control rate, meaning the number of patients, percentage of patients whose cancer did not grow or shrank when IRGD was added to standard chemotherapy, was about 85%, which is really unheard of. And on the basis of that and other data that we published recently on the mechanism, the IRGD peptide is now going to be studied in a phase 2/3 clinical trial funded by the National Cancer Institute and run by SWOG, which is one of the NCI cooperative groups that runs trials across the country. It's going to be led by one of our investigators from UCSD. And so this PanCAN translational grant has led to a national study where patients from across the country will be able to enroll, and if it meets its endpoint, it would go to the phase 3 portion, which would allow essentially a comparison to the standard of care and hopefully ultimately registration. So couldn't be more excited and more grateful to PanCAN's research for PanCAN's research funding, which really made this possible.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful story, exactly
Yes.
how it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And really shows, too, how we're able to leverage our donors' dollars, with what was a smaller grant for a translational research grant turned now into a big study at the NCI.
Absolutely. This will be multi-million dollars of investment by the National Cancer Institute to study this.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so you mentioned Sanford Burnham, which is another institute in Southern California, close to UCSD. And I think one of the questions we get a lot from donors is collaboration. Are the researchers collaborating? And I think the researchers absolutely collaborate in the pancreatic cancer space. But can you talk a little bit about that with this particular project?
Sure. I think all of us, and I'm sure Dr. Maitre, Dr. Rodriguez would agree that there is something unique about the pancreas cancer field in terms of how collaborative it is. And I think, part of it stems from the fact that we have such a difficult enemy to tackle, and we all recognize that none of us can do it on our own. And so, really from its inception, from the time when PanCAN began the mission to grow the field, there's always been this collaborative spirit, willingness to share ideas, willingness to share reagents, with one another, and get-togethers like the Scientific Summit only, further promote that. Feeling that, anyone's success is all of our success towards the mission that we all have, which is to conquer this disease.
Yep, no, I think that's really true, and a great example of why our Community for Progress is so important to PanCAN's strategy. So Dr. Pachter, Lynn talked about the Therapeutic Accelerator Award that Veristem got our inaugural award, so we're so thrilled. Congratulations to Veristem. Can you talk a little bit about what does this award from PanCAN mean to a company like Veristem?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say on behalf of Veristem, we're so thankful to PanCAN and to the donors, and we're also energized by this. So I think one of the realities in the biopharma industry, I think, is that in an ideal world, we would be able to test our drugs against all different cancers at the same time and see where we can benefit patients. But unfortunately, we have limited resources, and therefore we need to make choices. And I think, unfortunately, pancreatic cancer is a tough disease, and therefore it has a lower probability of success. And often the biopharma industry could be hesitant to go there. I think our main focus at Veristem right now is treating patients with ovarian and lung cancers because of clinical signals we've seen. But we've had a longstanding interest in pancreatic cancer through some of the preclinical and clinical collaborations we've had and the data that have resulted. I think the request for applications for the Therapeutic Accelerator Award came at a perfect time, because we've seen in our clinical trials that our agents can be especially effective. Our agents are VS6766 and defactinib, which I can tell you more about, but that they're really effective when patients have KRAS mutant tumors. And pancreatic cancer we thought of immediately, because probably more than 90% of patients have a KRAS mutation driving their tumors. So that would be a perfect opportunity. And this award has really enabled us to accelerate this. We're totally energized within the company, and we're starting a trial very soon in the field of pancreatic cancer to test these agents.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, that's sort of what everything we hoped for when we put this RFA out, that we were going to encourage a company that was not prioritizing pancreatic cancer to prioritize this disease.
It's a perfect fit, yes.
Just so thrilled that that's indeed what it did.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the grant. What is it funding?
Yeah, I think that, pancreatic cancer is treated primarily with chemotherapy, and I think we're really in an era where targeted therapies that look specifically at what's driving the cancer, what are the needs for that specific cancer, are important. So I think when we look at pancreatic cancer, standard of care chemotherapy will be a component of our trial, but we're adding 2 other targeted agents as well. So first of all, as I mentioned, because pancreatic cancer is driven by mutant KRAS, we have a drug called VS6766, which is a dual inhibitor of RAF and MEK, which are just downstream of KRAS. So what the drug does is it blocks the signals that come from KRAS that drive the tumor growth. And then the second drug, I think Dr. Lowy already mentioned, the problem of stromal density. That's a limitation in pancreatic cancer. So we know that stromal density can prevent drugs from getting into the tumor, and we've seen both preclinically and clinically that our FAK inhibitor, defactinib, can reduce that stromal density, and we think it can increase the effectiveness of other drugs. So what our trial will do, that's funded by PanCAN, is it'll be in frontline pancreatic cancer, and we'll be combining VS6766, the RAF/MEK inhibitor, with our focal adhesion kinase inhibitor, with standard of care chemotherapy. And we're hoping that within a couple of months we'll be starting that, and we're really excited to see how that goes.
Yeah, that's terrific, really exciting. And of course, the idea is that if this early stage trial that we're funding with this grant is successful, that it will go on potentially to be in PanCAN's Precision Promise, which is a late stage phase testing. So can you talk about the value of what Precision Promise brings to a company like Verastem?
Yeah, I think that first of all, I'd like to say that through our interaction with PanCAN and collaboration, we're already going to be working with a number of the Precision Promise sites and investigators in the current trial that's being funded by PanCAN. So it really sets us up to be able to work with PanCAN's Precision Promise in a great way. I think my understanding is that PanCAN's Precision Promise enables trials to be maybe less expensive and more efficient, and also potentially won't require as many patients to get to the answer we're trying to get to. So I feel that if this is as successful, the current trial, as we hope it is, then it should dovetail really well into Precision Promise as we try to get into the later stage trials.
And that's exactly right. PanCAN's Precision Promise is an adaptive clinical trial platform that allows for fewer patients to enroll to determine if something is working or not working, which also makes it less expensive, de-risks some of that risk that a company takes on when they're investing in a disease like pancreatic cancer. So really terrific, and congratulations again.
And again, I'd like to express our appreciation to PanCAN and the donors. It's a wonderful collaboration.
Yes, and it seems like we have new ambassadors for PanCAN and pancreatic cancer, and so
purple shirt.
I know. I think that's a terrific added benefit as well. So yes, welcome to the community.
Thank you.
So Dr. Lowy, you are a PI for PanCAN's Precision Promise, an investigator of PanCAN's Precision Promise. So, kind of building off of what Dr. Pachter said, why is it important for us to bring new treatments in to Precision Promise that are exciting and innovative, so that we can enroll patients in this study?
Well, obviously, pancreas cancer, our success rates are nowhere near where we want them to be. And so that requires new ideas, new directions. And it really, there's an imperative to go faster. The old-fashioned way of designing a trial, getting it open, going through, looking at the results at the end, seeing, unfortunately, in this field, most of the time, the results aren't what we want, then going on to the next one. It's too slow. It takes too much patient resources. It's too expensive. And so Precision Promise, the thoughts behind the design are really to try to reduce all of those barriers and allow us to test multiple new drugs at the same time, to allow us to do a trial where we get a signal early that something is or is not working, and so we can focus on the promising signal and not expose patients to the harm of drugs that are not helping them. At the same time, we don't ever have to stop and write a new trial. We're going on forever until we've cured this disease. And so drugs will come in, they will come out, they will graduate to the next phase, or they will be discarded as not effective. And it's cost efficient, it's patient efficient, and so it will hopefully get us where we want to go much faster.
Yep, and so we have 20 sites now across the country that are enrolling patients in Precision Promise. We're adding another 10 sites over the next 6 months or so. And monthly, all of the investigators from all of the sites also get together, part of our clinical trial consortium, to talk about how things are going in Precision Promise and also talk about new ideas. Can you talk about why that part is also an important part of Precision Promise and bringing the...
It's certainly those group discussions, first of all, help keep up the momentum and help keep everybody engaged, and to understand, when you're enrolling patients at your own site, you can sometimes lose touch with what's the bigger picture. And so having that monthly call engages us about how are we all doing with accrual, problems we may be having at our own site about getting patients on study. Other folks may be having those same issues, or somebody may have solved them or figured out a way, through that we can all learn from. And so that's really, really important. And then, what's also very exciting is we have this little talk by one of the sites called the Big Kahuna, named by Vince Picosi, who is really the clinical, medical director of Precision Promise. And it's really about what's the next big idea, because one of the really great things about Precision Promise, and I know a reason why companies like Veristem are interested in participating, is these are really outstanding institutions and outstanding investigators. A lot of the thought leaders in the field who are participating in PanCAN Precision Promise, and so we get to hear ideas from one another, and again, learn from one another, help one another, and so it really helps keep up the excitement about what might be the next thing that we might be studying, and you kind of hear it from the ground up. So that's really fun and obviously keeps us all energized.
Yeah, no, it's a really amazing group that has lots of passion about making advances. So, Dr. Rodriguez, let's shift gears a little bit. We've been talking about research for new treatment for patients, but we all know that just as important is that we need to detect pancreatic cancer much earlier. So you've received a PanCAN Catalyst Award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
For your work to improve access to genetic testing, as well as awareness about prevention strategies among at-risk Black and Latinx families. Mm-hmm. So tell us more. This is really interesting and important work. Tell us more about this and why you're excited about this work.
So first off, I just wanted to thank PanCAN and their generous funders for supporting this type of work. It's really important because in terms of access to cancer prevention and care, there are disparities when we're talking about it, particularly affecting Black and Latinx communities. So what the PanCAN Catalyst Award does, which I was honored and really humbled to receive, is fund the Regenerate study. So Regenerate stands for Racial and Ethnic equity in genetic education, risk assessment, and testing. And what it looks at is perceptions of Black and Latinx individuals who are at risk for pancreatic cancer and what may make it harder or easier to get genetic testing or a risk assessment for them. Specifically, not only on the patient level, but what can we as providers do better? What do we need to know in order to advocate for system level changes? And really what this will allow us to do is then design and employ different strategies that we can use to address these issues and then hopefully down the road scale them.
Yeah, no, it's such important work, and we hope to also learn from it, even how we can apply some of that to our patient services program as well. So talk about some of the promising pancreatic cancer research that is happening in the healthcare disparities in cancer genetics.
Absolutely. So in terms of a little bit of background, Black patients who are diagnosed with pancreatic cancer are often diagnosed at later stages when the disease is less amenable to care and treatment. And when we're talking about Black and Latinx patients with pancreatic cancer, they have lower survival times and in general are actually less likely to be referred for a genetic evaluation. So there's a lot of great work going on out there. Dr. Savatian out of USC is actually doing numerous studies that she's been leading using the multi-ethnic cohort, looking at pancreatic cancer incidence, risk factors, and outcomes. And something that's really unique to this cohort is really how diverse it is. So it has individuals who self-identify as white, Black, Latinx, Japanese American, as well as Native Hawaiian. And so another project that's actually out of Moffitt in Florida is run by Dr. Permuth, and she actually created the Florida Pancreas Collaborative, in which they're recruiting individuals from underrepresented backgrounds who have pancreatic cancer, as well as obtaining various biospecimens in order to move the field forward for precision medicine efforts. So giving the right care to the right patient, particularly when we're talking about these historically marginalized communities. So there's a lot of exciting work that's going on out there, and I'm just excited that PanCAN is allowing me to be able to be a part of it.
Well, it's really important. It also shows why PanCAN has really taken on, we need to do targeted outreach to different communities, and one size doesn't fit all. And so we really appreciate that you're going to help teach us more about that through the work that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
So Dr. Mitra, you're a pathologist. Explain to everybody, what does that mean? And talk about the areas of research you're most excited about right now.
Sure, absolutely. So when a patient undergoes surgery or a biopsy, the tissue that's obtained, that comes to me as a pathologist. I look at it under the microscope and I say, is it a cancer or not? And if it's a cancer, what type it is? And this is really important because even though we have been talking about pancreas cancer as one entity, it's actually not really one single disease. There are a lot of different types of cancer that arise in the pancreas, even though they're all lumped together as pancreas cancer. And it's very important that a highly qualified pathologist looks at the tissue, whether it's a biopsy or a surgery, and confirms what type of cancer it is, because that can determine what treatment you get. And so I will always say, well, I understand that somebody has pancreas cancer, but what type of pancreas cancer do they have? That is going to be absolutely critical to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. 20 years ago, we thought it was a homogeneous disease. Everyone was treated exactly the same. And we've learned so much over the last 20 years, but it actually makes it much more complicated, too, to make sure that we understand that information and then we treat patients accordingly.
Now, you also asked me what excites me. So as a pathologist, we don't just look at tissues under the microscope. We also analyze them using molecular approaches. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, because for a very long time, and Dr. Lowy and Dr. Rodriguez are very aware of this, there was a lot of nihilism about testing pancreatic cancer for molecular abnormalities, because the understanding was, well, nothing's going to show up anyway. And so PanCAN actually did one of the first studies called Know Your Tumor that looked at pancreatic cancers from the community, from many, many centers around the country, and found that a not insignificant minority of cases, about a quarter, which is not a small number, have abnormalities for which you can actually use targeted therapy. So that was the first evidence to show that it is actually worthwhile to test, to profile pancreatic cancers at the molecular level. And now this is very important, and I want folks who are listening in to take note of this. Now the guidelines, the national guidelines have changed and have said that every single advanced pancreatic cancer should undergo molecular testing, because you might find druggable abnormalities in them that for which now you have agents that can work. And this is going to become even more important now that we have agents that target, as Dr. Pachter mentioned, KRAS, because KRAS is found in 90% of pancreas cancers. And so it's almost going to become a universal approach that every single pancreas cancer needs to be molecularly profiled.
Yes.
So don't buy when somebody says you don't need to profile a pancreas cancer. You absolutely have to do that.
Absolutely. And PanCAN's patient services reinforces that message, recommend that all patients get genetic testing and biomarker testing of their tumor.
Exactly.
But it is exciting, I think, that we didn't know that 5 years ago. And today we absolutely know it. We are learning, we
Yes.
are making advances. So Dr. Mitra, Dr. Rodriguez shared the work she is doing related to genetic testing and early cancer interception strategies. As a pathologist, what is your perspective on this work? And can you talk more about some of the high risk groups for pancreatic cancer?
Absolutely. And so one of the things that has happened over the last 2 decades, in part because of research sponsored funded by PanCAN, is we have really come to understand who the high risk groups are who are more predisposed to pancreatic cancer in their lifetimes. And obviously, one of the big groups in that, the biggest chunk in that probably would be individuals who have a mutation in their germline, which is something that they inherited in their families. So these are families that have multiple family members who have pancreatic cancer. And we've really come to understand over the last decade or so what some of these abnormalities in the DNA are that are increasing an individual's lifetime risk for pancreatic cancer. So for example, one of the genes or a family of genes that is involved in increasing a lifetime risk of pancreas cancer are these breast and ovarian cancer genes. And they're called BRCA because they were first found in breast and ovarian cancer, but now we know that they also increase the lifetime risk of pancreas cancer. So if there is a family that has BRCA mutations running in them, it's important not only to test unaffected family members for breast and ovarian cancers, but also remember to make sure that they are undergoing some surveillance for pancreatic cancer. And it's interesting because I'm always surprised how often this is not known even by primary care physicians, that BRCA mutations do increase the risk of pancreatic cancer. And there are other such mutations. And the other thing that has happened thanks to advances in DNA testing is the cost of identifying or testing for these germline mutations that run in families has come down dramatically. When I first started 20 years ago, to sequence one gene would cost thousands of dollars. Now you can test 30 or 40 of these genes together for a fairly modest cost of $250. And so actually Dr. Rodriguez is one of the pioneers of a study that's really testing unaffected family members for these germline mutations, because if you can identify them at a stage when they don't yet have cancer, then you can do surveillance on them and prevent that cancer from happening or diagnose it at an early stage. So that's one big group. The other group is individuals who have these lesions in the pancreas called cystic lesions. And Dr. Lowe is actually one of the national leaders on that. He can probably speak to this as well. But these are individuals who have these fluid-filled sacs in the pancreas called cysts. And there's a lot of us who are wandering around. We're walking around with cysts in our pancreas, and we don't know it because they're not causing any symptoms. But as more and more people are undergoing scans, like CT scans or MRIs for completely unrelated causes like a gallbladder stone or a kidney stone, we're finding these cystic lesions. And thanks to, again, work that PanCAN has funded and Dr. Lowy and others have done, we now know that the vast majority of these cystic lesions actually don't have a risk of progression to pancreas cancer. You can leave them alone. But there is a minor subset that does. And really what we're trying to understand is how can we best identify those that are the bad actors in this big group and really get those out early. So that's the second high-risk group. And then there's a third high-risk group that we have just started literally scratching the surface, and that's adults who have new onset diabetes for the first time. And I'm really most excited about this high-risk group because, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first example of a high-risk group where we can really impact the largest number of patients with pancreatic cancer.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. But there is a lot, people have a lot of questions around these topics. People are concerned
Absolutely.
if they've lost someone to pancreatic cancer in their family, are they a part, or is anyone in their family a part of these high-risk groups? So people should certainly call PanCAN's patient services if they have questions and to learn and understand it better. But you started to allude to new onset diabetics and that being a risk or a symptom potentially for pancreatic cancer. So you are a principal investigator in PanCAN's Early Detection Initiative. Can you talk about what is our Early Detection Initiative and
Yes.
what is it designed to do and what's been the progress so far?
Absolutely. I'm very happy to talk about it. I'm going to take a step back first and give a little bit more background on why we are even talking about new onset diabetes in the first place. So years ago, my colleague, Dr. Suresh Chari, who's now at MD Anderson but was at Mayo Clinic, did really wonderful studies showing for the first time that many of his patients, he made this really interesting observation that many of his patients who came with pancreas cancer, they often said, I developed diabetes for the first time, 6 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago. And so he started making these connections between diabetes appearing for the first time in individuals in their 50s or 60s and the subsequent diagnosis of pancreas cancer. So this became a link that he published now 15 years ago and has now been validated by many other groups in the United States and worldwide. And we now know that when this new onset diabetes is paired with other features like weight loss, which typically doesn't happen in the usual diabetes, because in usual diabetes, your physician says, please lose weight and your diabetes will get better, and it does. In this case, unfortunately, the weight loss doesn't make the diabetes get better. So this new onset diabetes paired with weight loss has now emerged as a signal, if you so will, of a pancreas cancer that has not yet manifested itself with the usual symptoms of jaundice or abdominal pain. So it's sitting there, it's hidden, but it's sending this new onset diabetes sort of as a warning sign. We now know that in individuals above 50 years of age, there is a 7 to 8-fold higher risk of having a pancreas cancer being diagnosed in the next 3 years versus those who don't have new onset diabetes. Now, I want to caution that the overwhelming majority of new onset diabetes is still new onset diabetes. I don't want the listeners to panic, but it's important that if the new onset diabetes appears to be atypical, and especially if it's associated with weight loss and the diabetes is not getting better, this is something you need to think about and to speak with your physician. Now, here is where I'm really excited. This is still very preliminary observations that have not been tested in a large population. So it's just absolutely fabulous, and I would say I'm really honored to be along with Dr. Chari, one of the sort of the leaders of this PanCAN's Early Detection Initiative, which happens to be the single largest ever performed randomized trial looking at the impact of new onset diabetes as an early detection sign for pancreatic cancer. There is no study of this size that has ever been done. And so it's a really big investment on PanCAN's part, and we are very grateful to PanCAN for doing it, because at the end of this trial, we'll learn a lot. We'll learn the relationship between new onset diabetes and pancreas cancer, but we'll also learn how can we differentiate usual diabetes, which is what the vast majority will still have, from the ones where it's actually because of the pancreas cancer that's hiding inside and causing the diabetes. So in this trial, we'll be collecting blood samples on patients over time, and those blood samples will undergo a variety of tests, both existing tests and new tests that are coming in, and will allow us to find biomarkers, blood-based tests that we can now use in the clinic someday to say, well, if you have new onset diabetes, you may be at risk for pancreas cancer. And what's sort of the end goal of all of this? The end goal of all of this is to get more of our patients to Dr. Lowy so he can operate on them and get the tumor out, and therefore increase survival and potentially long-term cures.
Yeah, no, it's great. A really exciting, big project, but definitely moving us in the right direction.
And I will say this, this kind of a project is hard to get funding from the federal government. So I'm very grateful that PanCAN is putting major dollars into this multi-center national effort, because again, we have one shot at this. And so this is going to be practice changing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you again to our donors who are amazing in supporting these big initiatives. So many families, of course, have stories that they just wish their family member had been diagnosed earlier. And while we never want to scare anyone, I think, ultimately knowledge is power.
Yes.
And we want people to be their very best patient advocate. That's what PanCAN is all about, so that individuals can be in control of their health.
Absolutely.
So, last question for you, Dr. Mitra. We gave you a Career Development Award back
Don't say when. Don't say when.
Okay, a while ago. And we were very lucky to have brought you into our fold early in the days of PanCAN.
Yes, absolutely.
You in those early days were mentored by some of the leaders at the time, and now, of course, you are the leader, mentoring others. Can you talk about why PanCAN's Community for Progress is so important?
No, I mean, I think this was mentioned previously. It truly is a community. One of the best things I like about how PanCAN treats its grantees is, you don't just get the grant, you finish the project, and it's thank you very much, it was good knowing you. You really stay connected to the larger community, to all the researchers. We come back for these summits, and it's a wonderful way of interacting, not only with us veterans, but also
Thank you for putting it that way.
wonderful, new investigators like Dr. Rodriguez. All of us come together and we exchange ideas. We stay connected. This is really, and I think Dr. Lowy said it best. We have a very deadly enemy that we are fighting, and so we need to do this together as a team. And so, to me, the Community of Progress really enables that. You can see examples of that right
here. Yes, and you're a shining star of that. So, Dr. Rodriguez, for you are a junior investigator. You got this award from PanCAN, and you're speaking at our scientific summit tomorrow. What does that mean for you?
It means a lot to be able to have the support from PanCAN to continue advancing healthcare equity in the space of early cancer prevention for pancreatic cancer. Early on, when I was thinking about the question for Regenerate, Dr. Mitra actually, alongside my mentor, Dr. Sapna Singhal, provided critical feedback to me. What types of questions should I be asking? How should I approach these questions? What type of study design should I be thinking of? So being able to get feedback, work with, and collaborate with senior scientists who are leaders in their field is really critical at this stage of my career, not only in the short term, but also in the long term, figuring out, what obstacles might I face? How can they potentially help me navigate those obstacles? And in the future, potentially be collaborators and sponsors. So being able to talk about studies like Regenerate at the PanCAN Summit and gain feedback from senior scientists and leaders and talk to them is not only inspirational on a personal level, but really a catalyst for academic growth.
Yeah, no, and I think that's one of the most amazing things that I see is the camaraderie, lifelong colleagues and friends that come out of the meetings that we host and bringing everyone together. So we're so glad to have you part of our community.
And I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Welcome. And so, Dr. Lowy, I'm going to give you the last word. You've been a part of PanCAN for many, many years. You've received grants from us. You've sat on our scientific and medical advisory board. And in fact, you're the immediate past chair chair of our Scientific and Medical Advisory Board. From your perspective, you've attended many summits. Why is Community for Progress, PanCAN Scientific Summit so important?
Well, it's all about keeping the train moving forward. And the Community for Progress is, it's like a train where you're stopping and we're pulling more new passengers on, like Dr. Rodriguez. And by, being able to work with and be mentored, as she just gave the example, by people like Dr. Maitra, you're growing the next generation and still being able to benefit from us veterans along the way who can share, our experiences in both, the field, career development, et cetera. But now, the community keeps growing because now we're involving folks like Dr. Pachter and pharma who are really critical partners, because at the end of the day, drugs mostly get developed by pharma, not in academic laboratories, with some exceptions, but having them in partners with us is really the way to make things go faster and faster. And so the larger the community gets, the more collaborative it gets, the better things are going to be for the quality of the research, the speed of the research, which ultimately serves our patients. So, the community, along with, the collegiality and all the benefits of making lifelong friends, but it really impacts and accelerates the work, which is really what we're all here to do. And so it's really a vital part of what PanCAN has grown and continues to grow.
Absolutely. Not one person and not one institution is going to solve this problem.
That's right.
It's going to take all of us working together, collaborating, and continuing these discussions year over year. And that's how we're going to get to where we're going. So what an amazing panel. Thank you for just all of the information, your tremendous support. Dr. Rodriguez, congratulations on your recent grant. Congratulations to Veristem on your grant. Dr. Lowy and Dr. Maitra, you're just long-term service to PanCAN. I couldn't be more grateful. And of course, Dr. Matrisian for your leadership at PanCAN. So thank you all. It's going to be a terrific week ahead.
Yes, look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our experts for joining us today. You provide so much hope to patients and their families. I'd also like to thank Veristem for being such gracious hosts here at their headquarters in Boston. A special thank you to all of you who watched today. I hope it's clear that you are funding progress in pancreatic cancer, and we are so grateful. Remember that PanCAN Patient Services can help answer any questions you have. Contact PanCAN Patient Services, and a case manager can help you. Also, you can keep progress going in pancreatic cancer research. Please make a gift today on our website at pancan.org. None of what you heard about today would happen without you. You and your donations are so appreciated. If you are interested in investing in a specific research project, please contact Lisa Gray at lgray@pancan.org. Until next time, thank you for all that you do.